Hello everyone, and welcome to Politically Incorrect. You know, I know since we started our second season of Politically Incorrect a few months ago, we've been talking almost exclusively about the presidential elections. But in 2 weeks, when you go to the polls, the presidential elections aren't the only thing you're going to be voting on. You're also going to need to vote for a U.S. senator and a U.S. representative. And on the state level, you're going to be voting on a state treasurer, an auditor general, an attorney general, a state senator, and a state representative. And this year in Pennsylvania, we even get to vote on a proposed state constitutional amendment. And yes, by far the sexiest race you're going to vote for in this election is the presidency. But these other people you probably don't care about serving all those positions I just named are actually going to play a much bigger role in your day-to-day lives. So it's important that you're at least familiar with the people on the ticket. So that's what I want to do for you today. I want to get you familiar with these people that you're also going to be voting for, because when it comes to the price of your speeding tickets, or whether or not that road you drive to school on every day that has 1 million potholes is going to get paved, these are the people who are going to be determining those small annoying things that actually impact your life. So let's start with the other national race you're going to be voting for. Assuming you live in Pennsylvania, right below the presidential election, the next major election is, of course, the Senate race, pitting incumbent Republican Pat Toomey against his Democratic challenger Katie McGinty. Now, I'm sure you've seen the countless ads bashing both of these candidates, talking about millionaire Pat Toomey and millionaire Katie McGinty. But let's get past the rhetoric, and let's just talk about their backgrounds. Now, the incumbent Pat Toomey was elected back in 2010. Before he was a senator, he was a businessman, he worked on Wall Street, he owned a bank, he's one of the biggest proponents for eliminating corporate tax, and since he was elected, he has voted in an almost extremely conservative fashion on a range of issues. He voted against the aptly named common sense gun reform legislation over the summer, but has been hailed as one of the few Republicans who do support gun regulation. He's one of the senators who band together to deny a vetting of President Obama's Supreme Court pick Merrick Garland. More recently, he voted to allow the families of September 11 victims to sue Saudi Arabia. He doesn't believe in global warming, and he doesn't believe it's caused by humans. And he's consistently voted for tax cuts for the wealthiest 1% of Americans. It's also worth mentioning that Pat Toomey has not thrown his support behind the Trump-Pence presidential ticket, at least not as of us filming this, but he also refuses to disavow the candidate. So the public is rightfully a little confused on where he stands on the issue. Pat Toomey is also, almost in every regard, a true far-right candidate. And while his views are extreme right, the same could be said about his opponent's views on the left. Katie McGinty is the Democratic nominee who is challenging Pat Toomey for the Senate. McGinty was a former state and federal environmental policy official in Pennsylvania. She served as an environmental ambassador to Bill Clinton and Al Gore, and she served as Governor Tom Wolf's chief of staff after an unsuccessful run for governor 2 years ago. She's been endorsed by Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, Joe Biden, Tom Wolf, and is seen as a pretty safe choice for Democrats. Now, it is worth mentioning about Katie that she does not have a voting record because she's never held a public office that required her to vote on anything. So while we can assume we know what stance she might take on issues based off of her party and her platform, we actually don't have a history to base those assumptions off of like we do for Pat Toomey.